Good morning and welcome to 365 Days of Amazing Stories with Theo Mayer. Here we are on day 285, and I'm continuing the story of the slave girl, Anis al-Jalis and Nur al-Din Ali ibn Khaqah from 1001 Arabian Nights. Now you might remember that Sheikh Ibrahim awakened to his folly, drinking and entertaining the way he was, carousing, and then fetching a stick in his greed to beat Karim, the fisherman, only to come out and see before him his benefactor and employer, Harun al-Rashid, commander of the faithful. Anis al-Jalis was taken to the palace of Harun al-Rashid and given quarters there to stay in until she could be sent to live and be in Basra with Nur al-Din. But in the meantime, Nur al-Din Ali ibn Khaqah was on his way to Basra. And in a short amount of time, he arrived and he went straight to the king, Muhammad Solomon, and he presented the letter to the king. Now, Muhammad Solomon, he kissed the letter after reading it. He folded it, kissed the letter, and he stood up 3 times. And he was in the process of abdicating the throne to Nur al-Din, who was to be emplaced as king. And just as he's about to begin the invocation to God to make Nur al-Din the king, the vizier, that evil vizier, Ibn Sawi, arrives. And he sees Nur al-Din and he sees the king standing up. And he says, "What is going on here?" And King Muhammad Solomon presented the letter to the vizier and said, "See for yourself. Read the letter." And so the vizier reads the letter, and immediately he rips it up. And he takes the paper and he puts it into his mouth and begins to chew on the paper. And the king, Muhammad Solomon, says, "What are you doing?" And the vizier said, "Do you think that that was written by the caliph?" And the king says, "Well, yes, wasn't it?" And the vizier said, "By God, no. This is a forgery, written in the hand of this young man. What are you thinking to do here?" "Well, what would you advise?" said the king. "I would advise you to hand him over to me. Let me take care of him. And if there is not a letter of investiture that is sent to place him as king, some formal letter, then we need to punish him as is his due. Why would the caliph send him here all by himself? Certainly he would come with a retinue. This is ridiculous. Hand him over to me." So King Muhammad Solomon, he agreed. And he allowed the vizier Ibn Sawi to lead Nur al-Din away under guard. When he got to his own palace, he told his guards, "Throw him to the ground." And Nur al-Din was thrown to the ground and beaten until he fainted. And then Ibn Sawi had him raised up and dragged through the passageways of his palace, downstairs, until he came to the guard chamber where there were cells below. And he told Qatar. Qatar was the head guardsman there in Ibn Sawi's palace. he said, "Take him and throw him into the deepest cell and beat him." So Qatar had him drugged to this cell and through the night continued to beat him until Nur al-Din fainted. When Nur al-Din came to, of course, he was bruised and beaten and bashed. And all he could say to himself was, "By the grace of God the Almighty, there go I, and by patience alone will I survive." Now this went on for 10 days, the beatings. And finally, after 10 days, Ibn Sawi, the evil vizier, he gathered some precious gifts together, and he gave them to some Bedouins. And he told them, "Present these to the king, and tell the king that they are for Nur al-Din, the new king." So these Bedouins went and did as they were bid. Of course, they had been paid to do so. They presented these gifts to the king, and the king was disgusted because these gifts were presented to Nur al-Din, who he felt was feigning his kingship, that he had done this ahead of time to try to prove that this forged note that he had brought with him was real. And when Muhammad Suleiman saw these gifts given to Nur al-Din, the new king, he was like, "Ah, yes, that Nur al-Din." He sent for his guards and he said, "Have him fetched and bring him here, for today we will lop off his head. Just the memory of him irritates me." So the guards went to the palace of Ibn Sawi and fetched Nur al-Din and brought him in front of the king, Muhammad Suleiman. Of course, who came with him? Ibn Sawi. "Let us lop off his head," said the king. "Ah, this is fine," said Ibn Sawi. "But first, will you do me one favor?" Muhammad said, "What is it?" "Can you let me send couriers through the streets proclaiming that today, for all who wish, come to the palace grounds to watch the head of Nur al-Din Ali ibn Khaqah roll upon the ground?" "As you wish," said Muhammad Suleiman. And so, Ibn Sawi, he had proclamations drawn up and couriers went through the town calling out that Nur al-Din Ali ibn Khaqah was to be beheaded publicly in the palace court. Well, we'll leave the story there. What a twisted tale, and how has it come to this? Okay, I hope you enjoyed. Hopefully we'll see this story through in some pleasant ending. Join tomorrow, and thanks for joining today.